Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another Facebook Live chat on The Innovative Dad. Tonight we're going to be talking about growth mindset. That might be a topic that you've been hearing a little bit about in the news, or perhaps conversations with your child's principal or their school as a topic that's being talked a lot about in education these days as well. So I thought we'd back up a little bit and just let's define our terminology and talk about what do we mean when we say a mindset. So a mindset is a mental attitude that determines how you will interpret and respond to situations. And mindset is important because it goes to how our brain works. The brain is essentially, well, not physically a muscle. It does work in a lot of respects like a muscle does. If you don't use it, you lose it. And if you exercise your brain more, then it'll start to work better. And mindset is important because very often we think that the brain is static, leading us to think that things like talent are permanent, unchanging personal attributes that we can't do anything about. And every time that you work hard or you stretch yourself and learn something new, your brain forms new connections, and over time, you grow and you actually become smarter. So there are two main ideas within this concept of mindset, or two types of mindset, growth mindset and fixed mindset. And this is based upon the work of Dr. Carol Dweck. Let's talk a little bit about fixed mindset first. So this is the belief where we think that our core personality, our character traits, our talents, our abilities, and our intelligence are fixed things. You're smart or you're dumb. And, it's a sense of, it's the statements you might make to yourself. Oh, well, I could never do, that kind of art or learn to play the piano. We issue statements like this all the time that just says that this is how it is, and nothing is going to change because I don't have the ability to improve the abilities or traits that I have. Essentially, things are fixed, hence fixed mindset. Growth mindset is where we believe that things about who we are as people is much more malleable. That if we engage with effort, with some resilience, that we can unlock much more of the potential of who we are and who we can be. That genius doesn't come solely from talent, but comes from hard work and a desire to take your abilities to the next level. If you want to learn how to cook and be a great cook, it's something that you can do. You just have to put diligence and effort into it. So, a little bit more about the impact of mindset. We know that kids with growth mindset as a predominant way of looking at the world do better in school. On the flip side, a person with a fixed mindset is going, since they believe that they're one thing or the other, this idea of just having fixed traits. I'm good at art, or I'm bad at cooking, or whatever the fixed aspect of how they're looking at things works. Their success validates them as a person. So if I believe to myself to be an artist and I get praise for my art, then I am going to feel good about myself. But on the flip side, failure is going to start to tear me down in a way that it doesn't necessarily for somebody with more of a growth mindset. If you have a growth mindset, success and failure are seen as separate events that are not tied directly to who you are. And that gives you the ability to handle your failure just a bit more gracefully. And we know that kids do better when we allow them to learn from their failure, when we acknowledge their failure. And in fact, when we acknowledge our own failures in front of them is something that's also really important to do. When I was a principal, I would show the kids that I would, be struggling with some topic that they'd be working on, whether it was a foreign language, and attempt to use it, and show them that, hey, here's this adult who is just trying to figure out how to grow better with this, as a way of modeling the mindset that I wanted to have them about their own learning growth. Let's look at some situations and kind of parse through how would somebody deal with it, having a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset, to help you understand this just a little bit better. So let's say the situation is you're faced with something new. Somebody with a fixed mindset is going to prefer to stay out of these unfamiliar situations and not necessarily take the chance or risk failure. Or they may jump into it with some false bravado. But that false bravado is accompanied with a sense of anxiety and uncomfortability until they come out of that situation having been successful. Whereas somebody with a growth mindset is going to better judge the situation based upon its merits and decide more objectively whether or not they're going to engage in this. If they choose to jump in, they're going to be more comfortable leaning in to it and to the uncertainty of what's going on and working through the kinds of setbacks that they'll be faced. All right, another situation, but something needs effort. Somebody with a fixed mindset, it might think that because they've got talents and smarts that they don't need to put effort into it. Things are supposed to come more naturally to them. On the flip side, somebody with a growth mindset is going to dive in and really engage and do the deliberate effort and the practice that is needed to be successful. Criticism. So someone with a fixed mindset might deny, might get passive-aggressive around criticisms, and brings out sort of this fear that they have, this anxiety around not being able to do these things. Whereas somebody with a growth mindset is going to listen to the criticism. They're going to try and evaluate it for its merit. If it's baseless, if it's something that just is, it's an ad hominem attack, then they'll brush it off and move on. On the other hand, if it is constructive and provides them with feedback that's going to be helpful, then they'll attempt to learn from it. So these are just some different ways that mindset plays out in real life, whether you're a kid or a child. So let's pull this back to parenting for a moment. Some things to think about. You need to really make sure that you're monitoring your own self-talk if you want to encourage a growth mindset in your child. When you see a highly capable person, are you talking to them about the innate talent that this person had, or are you focusing more on the effort that went into it? And when you're talking to your child struggling about something, are you concluding that they can't do this and won't be able to develop the ability, or that they just haven't developed it yet? And even when you're issuing praise, are you keeping that praise focused on talent or focused on the behaviors that push them towards that success? You're going to want to become a role model learner and show how you learn from failure. This is hard for us as parents because we often want to have an air of perfection around our kids so that we feel they view us as being infallible. Well, I've got news for you. We're not. That's just not something that you're handed as a parent. We do make mistakes, and sometimes we make mistakes in ways that our kids can notice them, and that we can provide them as learning opportunities for ourselves and for our children. If you're struggling, let's say, with calculating the tip at a restaurant, and then you just give it to somebody else, to your spouse, you say she's better at math versus trying to engage, you're sending a message that this is a skill that might not be able to be built up through effort. I think that it's really important if we want to show, have our kids learn from the work that we're doing. Show them that you're setting learning goals, that you're working to improve, that you're trying. Be transparent about that. If you're learning a language or learning a new skill for work, have that be part of the conversation at your dinner table. And then, I think the last piece in terms of developing a growth mindset in your kids is really to praise the process. Don't just talk about the end product, which is what we're often focused on as parents. Oh, that's a great diorama that you put together. But instead, I see you're really working hard today. I like the way that you're trying to break this task apart so that you can get it all done. I think this is really important, and then, thinking about the words that we use as we talk about the experiences that our children have. So some things to think about. So again, going back to effort. Say that I see that you worked hard on it, versus saying that you are so smart. You don't want them to think of intelligence as necessarily a completely fixed quality. Say, okay, it seems like we might want to try a new strategy here, versus saying, all right, you know what, maybe this just isn't your cup of tea. You want them to feel that they have the capacity to improve and that they can control outcomes by the choices that they make. Even something simple as not saying you're a natural at that, because the next time that they fail, they might think that they don't have any ability to do these things, versus saying, I really like watching you do that. Because that then conveys that there's approval of the activity that they're doing, regardless of what the outcome. Again, we're really focused about process in doing this. Say that was really hard, that your effort has paid off, that next time you'll be ready for this kind of a challenge. You want to say that because you want to remind kids that they're able to overcome the challenges they have, and that putting forth effort cultivates growth mindset. Versus saying, that's really hard. It was really hard. I'm so glad that it's over and that you never have to do that again. There are always going to be new challenges ahead for your child. And you want to build up the tool set that they have, that this sense of resiliency, and resiliency is really baked into who they are in dealing, building that growth mindset. So that's just sort of a rundown of how to build up growth mindset in your kids, and just what growth mindset is in general. Join me next week. We're going to be taking a look at a much more serious topic that I've covered previously in these Facebook Live events. And we're going to be talking about suicide prevention and what to do when you suspect that somebody might be engaging in self-harm. A little bit of a harder topic to be talking about, but given some of the things that have gone on in my own community in the last several weeks, one that I felt was really important to put in front of everybody. So that'll be 1 week from tonight. That we'll be talking about suicide and suicide prevention. So until then, happy parenting.